Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's get started. So welcome everyone to today's event, How to Settle In When You're Feeling Unsettled, organized and presented by VR Pistachio. We are very excited to have you all here and grateful to have our charming and energetic speaker, Simone Holderbach. Let me start today's conversation by telling you about VR Pistachio. Then I'll introduce to our speaker and then we'll get started to the event that you're most looking forward to. So VR Pistachio is a local community, it's a global community of, for, and relocating spouses. This community is built by relocating spouses Aditi Patil and Dipali Paul. VR Pistachio focuses on empowering relocating spouses to navigate this adventure. VR Pistachio supports relocating spouses by helping them to learn, upskill, network, and build their local presence. Can you So, Pistachio vision is no relocating spouse is ever alone. And our mission is unlock the personal, professional, and economic potential of every relocating spouse. So, VR Pistachio offerings uh, so uh, has offered upskilling events, 12 networking events such like this, and mentorship pods. We offer upskilling webinars, networking events, mentoring programs where we organize broader programs for relocating spouses because we understand how important it is you to relocate to a new country and to build your network and pod. So meet our Pistachio founders, Aditi Patil and Dipali Paul. We both have them attending this session today. Let's move on to the next slide, which is our pistachio. What is in the pistachio name? This question we get often asked because we are open. It's a happy nut in China. So we are happy, we are global, and we are tough. And we are not sorry, so sorry. There is a little bit of a technical problem there. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, Isha, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. So without any further delay, let me introduce you to a wonderful speaker, Simone Holderbach. Simone is a relocating spouse, a founder of the Idle Mindset. She is a mindset and a life coach. She is charming, talented, enthusiastic person who has navigated the relocation journey very graciously. She focuses on helping relocating spouses who struggle with this huge life transition to adjust better, make new friends faster, create and execute an exciting vision for their next chapter in life. Here's to you, Simone.
Thank you, Isha. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hang on. There we go. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those sweet, kind words, Isha. And first of all, thank you to Aditi, Dipali, and everybody at We Are Pistachio for giving me the opportunity to speak at this event today. I'm very excited. This topic is near and dear to my heart. And we'll have an hour filled with tips, strategies, and tools that hopefully you can walk away with and use right away to change how you feel for the better. Research has shown us that just listening to a presentation allows us to retain approximately 20% of the content. But when we take notes and write things down, that goes up to a whopping 90%. And if we actively participate, it even goes higher than that. So I want to encourage you to grab a pen and a notepad and take notes as we go. You'll have the opportunity to download some workbooks at the end that you can use after the session to go through at your own time. But I always find it's helpful to write things down. So our topic today is how to settle in when you're feeling unsettled. We'll give you key strategies and instant tools, like I said, to ease stress and anxiety. And challenging times, and challenging times they are. And I cannot move my screen. Oh, here we go. Our top tier talking points are mental health awareness, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, self-care, self-compassion, and self-talk. And then we'll move on to some tips that, if used with the strategies you'll learn today, can help you settle in faster after a relocation. And we'll end with the takeaways in the summary. Isha has already given you a little bit of my background. I want to say a few more words about myself so you know who is speaking to you today. My relocating journey began 18 years ago. I can't believe it. Both my husband and I are from Germany originally, and initially we thought we'd be moving to Canada for 2 years, and I was looking at that more like a sabbatical than permanent relocation. But of course, things didn't turn out as we had planned, and we moved to New Jersey instead. We stayed there for 9 years, founded a family. I'm mom to Ella, who turned 16 in December, and Noah, who just turned 12 a few weeks ago. New Jersey was great. I met a lot of wonderful people, but I also became increasingly uncertain of what my professional future would look like. First of all, it took quite a long time for me to even get a work permit, but I also didn't know what it was that I wanted to be doing. I, back in Germany, had a really exciting career in business development and process management. Loved my job, worked 80 hours a week, and I knew that that was not sustainable with 2 small children at home. But what I could do, I really didn't know. Then one day at the hair salon of all places, I had a crazy epiphany. It's one of my most pivotal moments in my life. While I was sitting there thinking about the question, what I could be doing professionally, and I asked myself, what could you do? All of a sudden, I heard a male voice inside my head, and it said, massage therapy. Now you have to understand that I had never had a single massage in my life. But I did what any sane person would do in that moment. I listened to that voice, and I enrolled in school and graduated with high honors and opened my first private practice when my son turned 1. It was so strange, but so clear to me that it felt like the final puzzle piece had fallen into place. And I never doubted that voice or my decision, like ever. So that felt really good. However, as my practice grew and I hired 2 therapists and I added more treatment space, my husband lost his job. Just the same day my new lease actually began. And so we had to change plans again, and that led to our 3rd move and my 3rd trailing him to Seattle, Washington this time. This is where we're still living to this day. We've moved here, what is it, 2021, 8 years ago now. And it took a little bit of time to figure out where I wanted to be location-wise, because I was unfamiliar with the area, obviously. And I also decided to shift my focus away from massage therapy or relaxation massages to actually neurology-based treatment of complex pain conditions. I loved the work and I built my practice, became successful as I wanted to be while still caring for the family. And then COVID hit. And both my kids suffer from autoimmune diseases. So I made the decision that I did not want to see clients and risk them or their health. And so I decided to close my practice down. And I did what I always do when I don't know what to do. I learn something new that has worked for me all the time. I began to study hypnosis. I learned linguistic programming. I built on the mindset coaching that I had already offered to my manual therapy clients, and eventually enrolled in an official coaching school to get the skill set of pure coaching. And here I am today, specializing in helping relocating spouses who struggle with the opportunity and the challenge of relocating to a new city or a new country and starting over from scratch. And my goal is to help them figure out what it is that they want to do with their next chapter, what steps it takes to get there, and how to make it happen. And I love this work. My business is called The Ideal Mindset, and you can visit the website if you are so inclined and learn more about it if you like. But today, now that you know a little bit more about my background and my journey through different professions, I want to share with you some of the techniques I've learned along the way and that I use myself. They're my favorites to change the way I feel, and hopefully will change the way you feel too. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is why we chose this topic in the first place. And with everything that has been going on in this world, it's really no surprise that mental health is not in a good state right now. These statistics are from Mental Health America, but they are very similar globally. So if you look at the first chart on the left, it shows the increase in anxiety screenings in 2020 compared to 2019, and they went up by 93%. Depression screens went up 62%, and an incredibly sad 37% of Americans are having suicidal thoughts. Out of all of the ones who got screened, 80% were diagnosed with moderate to severe anxiety or moderate to severe depression. And almost 10% of our youth are diagnosed with severe major depression disorder. And 19% of adults suffer from a mental illness. There is a huge unmet need, both in terms of available therapies and practitioners. And this is why we thought it would be helpful for us to show you some techniques that you can use at home when feelings of upset or anxiety well up, to shift out of that state into a more peaceful mindset. And it all begins with you. You're probably familiar with the safety protocols on board of airplanes, where they tell us to put on the oxygen mask on ourselves first before helping other passengers. That's because if you pass out, you can't help anyone else. And that's very wise, and that's how it should be in the rest of our life. But unfortunately, that's not how it often plays out. Especially women tend to put other people before us, or other people's needs above us. We are great at keeping appointments with everybody else, but rarely do we make appointments with ourselves to schedule me time. Or if we do, we often feel guilty about it. But that's a different topic. We'll get a little bit more in detail on that later when we talk about critical inner voices. What I want to share with you today are pattern interrupts that can help you shift out of reflexive reactions to anxiety-inducing moments, because how we react tends to be very habitual and automated. And what we need to stop the flow is interrupt the pattern and redirect our brain's attention. We all know that for a healthy lifestyle, we should eat healthy, move on a daily basis, and hopefully practice some mindfulness techniques every day. But with everything that's going on, family demands, work stress, career uncertainty, COVID, worry about family far away and how their health and well-being is affected by everything, oftentimes that just doesn't seem enough to get us out of that worry zone. So what can we do if we are still feeling anxious? Well, the most simple pattern interrupt is actually our breath. You've heard that. It's not surprising, right? We've all heard about belly breathing, abdominal breathing. But what I want to share with you today is even simpler than that, because our goal is to shift out of the fight or flight response into the rest and digest response, out of the sympathetic into the parasympathetic state of our nervous system. And we can do that via our diaphragm, because breathing a certain way downregulates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the largest nerve in our body. It's a cranial nerve, meaning it originates directly in the brainstem, and it connects our brain to all of our organs. It goes down all of our torso and back up again, and it regulates many functions that are beyond our conscious control, such as breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, and immune response. So having a way in to affect the vagus nerve in a positive way is what we're after here. And the trick is not to breathe into your belly as deeply as possible. The trick is to exhale twice as long as you inhale. So let's try this pattern interrupt. I always breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth because I noticed I cannot exhale long through the nose, but feel free to experiment with it and do it the way it feels comfortable to you. So deep inhale and exhale twice as long. Deep inhale and exhale twice as long. I suggest 3 to 4 repetitions, and you should feel calmer immediately, because the long exhale actually secretes a substance called Vagusstoff that calms down the nervous system immediately. So this was super easy. Everybody can remember that. You can do that anywhere, anytime, all the time. The next one is what I call the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. It's to ground us even more, and it can be very helpful with anxiety attacks or panic attacks even. I've used that with my little son quite a few times. So if you want to follow along, I invite you to take your focus off the screen for a moment and settle into your own environment. Notice what's in front of you, next to you, and behind you. Take a deep breath in and out, twice as long if you wish. And then look around you for 5 things that you can see and name them in your mind. Next, look for 4 things you can feel. It can be your body's weight in the chair or on the sofa or wherever you may be seated. The clothing touching your skin. My elbows touching the armrests. 4 things you can feel. Next, notice 3 things that you can hear. Is it your breath? Do you hear any pets? Any birds outside? ticking of a clock, maybe 3 things that you can hear. And focus on 2 things that you can smell. Are you wearing cologne, deodorant? Do your clothes smell nice, or do they need a wash? 2 things you can smell. And finally, name 1 thing you can taste. That's sometimes a little challenging. If you can't find anything you can taste at the moment, you can think of your favorite taste or a favorite taste of yours. This exercise shifts us out of our head and anchors us in our body. It's very grounding and powerful. And again, you can do that in any environment and in any circumstance. The next instant pattern interrupt is called bilateral stimulation. And for this one, I'm going to end my screen share for a moment because I want to show it to you. And I want to see you all. This is ideally done with a small object in your hand. So if you have anything, could be a pen, could be a phone, could be also, you can pretend your fist is something. What we'll be doing is we'll be passing an object from one hand to the other. And I'm going to show it to you in a second, and then I'll guide you through it. So I'll hold my arms in front of me, and the goal is to cross the midline. Perfect. And hang on for a second. You're doing beautifully. Excellent. So when an anxious thought arises, and it could also be a craving or just a feeling of upset, whatever it is that you want to put a stop to, this can be very helpful. Typically in those moments, a part of our brain, like one hemisphere, tends to be overactive. And by crossing the midline, we are actually activating both brain hemispheres and bringing blood flow and neural stimulation to the entire brain, which helps to diffuse that anxiety cluster and downregulates it. So at the beginning of the exercise, when you feel something welling up inside you, I suggest you check in with yourself and kind of rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how you would rate it, and then start doing this for 1 minute. So if you can think of something, do you want to play along? Yeah, all right. So take your object and start passing it around, and I'm going to watch the time. And take some nice breaths. And after a minute is up, you can stop. Take a deep breath in. Exhale twice as long. And then check in with yourself. Think of that thought or that situation that had created the anxiety in you, and see where it's at. Typically, it should have dissipated. If there is still some residue, go back, do another 1 minute segment, and then check in again until it's completely gone. It's really effective. And like I said, it works for cravings and any kind of pattern interrupt. So it's super useful. A very simple version of the bilateral stimulation is what's called butterfly tapping. That's even easier, but I find the other one slightly more effective. But this one, you just cross over your arms and then you tap in turns and stimulate left, right, left, right, left, right. And same principle. After a while, you assess how you're feeling in terms of anxiety and how if you're feeling calmer, or if not, you just go back to it to do it a little bit longer. Let me go back into my shared screen. Hang on, this one is the right one. This is the summary of what I just demonstrated to you. And the butterfly tapping. In our next segment, I want to go quickly into teaching you how postural feedback or power posing can change the way we feel in 2 minutes. That's kind of incredible, but it does work really well. You've probably heard of power posing. If you haven't, it goes back to a research study done by Amy Cuddy. She's a social psychologist at Harvard, and she did a study where she compared high power poses to low power poses and what effects they had respectively on body biochemistry and on how people felt overall. Top row of this image, you'll see the high power poses like mammals, and actually all animals, not just mammals, they tend to assert themselves by claiming space, making themselves bigger. So that's what's happening in the top row. In the bottom row, you can see people are folding over, making themselves small. The lady in the middle picture, she's even touching her neck, which is a very vulnerable position. She feels like she needs to protect her neck. And you can see just from looking at it, that those postures do not exude great assertiveness. So the study that Amy Cuddy carried out in 2012 examined how people's hormone levels changed after 2 minutes in either a high power pose or a low power pose. So they took a saliva test before and after, and they also had them roll the dice and had them participate in a little gamble to assess their risk. What's the word I'm looking for? Their risk taking. Yeah. I don't remember the word in English right now. Whether or not they were willing to take risks. That's what I wanted to say.
Heather just put in the chat, maybe risk tolerance. She just
risk tolerance. Thank you. I couldn't see that. That's exactly. I was like, oh, it just escaped me for a moment. The result of that study showed that after 2 minutes in a high power pose, there was a 20% increase of testosterone, which is the dominance hormone and boosts energy levels. And even more impressive, a 25% decrease of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. And like when cortisol is high, we feel pretty crappy, especially if that goes on over a long period of time. People in high power poses also had higher risk tolerance. Here's the word. And people in low power poses had a decrease of 10% in testosterone. So their dominance went down and their stress hormone cortisol increased by 15%. And they were not willing to take any risks. So it's quite impressive to see what 2 minutes can do for our psyche. And of course, it's, you don't want to pose like that in front of your interviewer. But if you have 2 minutes before any evaluative task, like you have to pitch something, or you're applying for something, a job interview, or you're taking a test, maybe go to the bathroom and do the Wonder Woman. That's the most well-known pose, chest out, hip, shoulders down, gaze to the future, and both hands on your hips, and just breathe and stay in this posture and allow your body posture to inform your brain. This time it comes from the body and affects the mind to help you feel better and hopefully do a better job in the task that's awaiting you. And Amy Cuddy calls it fake it until you become it. Not fake it till you make it, but repeat it as often as you need to until it becomes natural to you. This one is also a very important quote. We have compassion for everyone else, but often we don't have compassion for ourselves. And I speak from personal experience here because I remember when I was in therapy a couple of years ago, my therapist told me, oh, Simone, where's your self-compassion? And I looked at her and I said, I don't even know what that means. I think I've come quite a long way, but it does not always come natural to us. But a very easy tool and technique to use is giving ourselves hugs. That might sound silly at first, but it's not very surprising if you think about it. Our skin is the biggest organ we have. It's innervated with so many sensory nerve endings, and a hug just feels good. And physical touch has many benefits. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It provides a sense of security and safety. It soothes and calms us down. And it's just a great de-stressor. What's really important when you give yourself a hug is, first of all, it should feel comfortable. So if going across your chest does not feel very comfortable to you, you can bring one arm to the opposite shoulder and then use the other one and bring this under the chest. And if you found a comfortable position, just give yourself a little squeeze or rub or rock and tell yourself it's okay, you're okay. And the crucial part is to not have it be a mechanical, just applying of pressure or rubbing. The intention of conveying a feeling of care and love for yourself and tenderness toward yourself, that's what actually makes it work so well. So this is something that I can highly recommend. Do it as often as you can throughout the day. It feels really great. And even if it looks silly, who cares? Our next bigger topic, beyond the pattern interrupts, are the limiting beliefs that often are at the root cause of anxious feelings and stress in our life. When we are young, our subconscious mind tries to protect us from physical or emotional harm, and it provides us with responses to situations that we encounter as we grow up. These are filed away, and our brain always references back to them as we go through situations in the present day. However, oftentimes they are no longer relevant to what we are going through today because they were useful when we were 5 or 3 or maybe 12, but not so much today. Yet they run in our subconscious as an automated program. The goal is to talk to ourselves like we would talk to someone we love. And very rarely do we actually do that. Have you ever heard those negative voices in your head? Like, anybody familiar with that? Telling you you're not good enough, you'll never get that job, you're too old to change. Everyone else has figured it out, but you're just not good enough. You're so stupid. You always mess it up. No one appreciates me. All these blanket statements that chatter away in the back of our mind. Why do we have them? Why do we have them? They never mean well. They always try to keep us from doing what it is that we want to be doing. So why are they there? This brings us to BS and our inner critic. And BS actually does not stand for what you think it stands for. It stands for our belief system. Our belief system that we can look at as a record of the past. It's like an old filing cabinet in our subconscious mind where everything gets stored away. When something negative happened, a belief is formed and filed away for future reference. And then, like I said earlier, when in the present time something happens, our brain always wants to keep us safe. So its first go-to is to think back. Has something similar happened before? If yes, what did I do? And the automatic process runs its course in the background, and often we are not even aware of it. Belief and repetition forms our identity, and we can call that inner critical voice the inner critic. Other people call it the saboteur. It is the version of you that you learned to be over time, but it's not necessarily the person you want to be if you become aware. It's actually not even just one inner critic that lives in our mind. Very often we can differentiate 5 different types of critics. There's the classic judge. It judges you endlessly for what you did or didn't do. It criticizes every decision, blames you, and it fills you up with self-doubt. And if you're a perfectionist, you're probably pretty familiar with the judge. Speaking of familiar, fun fact is that oftentimes those negative voices in our head tend to have the voice of someone from our past. And it's an interesting way to play with that. And I can talk a little bit about that later. If you know what it sounds like and just change it in your imagination from, say, the nagging voice of your mom telling you that you're just not good enough, to the voice of Minnie Mouse saying, you're just not good enough. It is very effective in switching us out of that, oh my gosh, it makes us feel small, and into not taking it as seriously and distancing ourselves from it. The second inner critic is the victim. Oh, it's so powerless. It's always at the receiving end of everything bad. All the good things happen to the other people and all the bad things happen to you. It's not me, it's them. That's the attitude. And it wants to be rescued and it's seeking attention. And it always lacks ownership and puts the blame somewhere else. Then there's the protector. You could argue that all of the inner critics want to protect us. This one I put as a separate inner critic because it can be deceptively soothing. Its goal is to protect you from harm, and it often leads us to completely avoid any action. It keeps us stuck, and fear of failure is bigger than any willingness to try something new and maybe have to try again. It paralyzes us. But then it has that other side where it can be super sweet when you're opening the fridge at night, let's say the freezer, and you look at that ice cream and you hear that voice in your head saying, you should have a bowl of ice cream. You had a really rough day. And you think, yeah, I really did. I should have a bowl of ice cream. And you scoop out a bowl of ice cream and you eat it. And the moment you ate that last spoonful of ice cream, the voice switches again and it reprimands you like, You really have no willpower. You can never lose weight. What were you thinking eating ice cream at 10 o'clock at night? So it's very difficult to satisfy the protector, but it is important to recognize it. The ringmaster is number 4. Anybody who suffers from imposter syndrome might be very familiar with this one. It's a hyper-vigilant, always pushing voice of keeping us going and don't stop. You must never slow down. If you slow down, you'll fail. And you don't even deserve what you're doing, so you better push it, push it, push it, push it. And that is a very, very common inner critic in many of us. The last one is the neglector. It's predominantly present in women, or more present in women, I should say. It tells you that you're actually not worthy of care. Everybody else is more important and needs to be the priority, and you don't really deserve any investment in yourself. You're just there to serve. And don't speak up, just do your job. And that's number 5. When the reason we have them, because we're still, thinking back of why do we have those if they don't serve us well, goes back again to the childhood. When we were growing up, they were meant to be our guardians and help us to avert harm or physical or emotional threats. And it even makes sense when you think of it from a evolution standpoint, where the goal was to live 15 to 20 years, or as long as enough to reproduce. So to get us through that phase, it helped us to be hypervigilant. So back in the day, when the leaves in the tree were moving, the ringmaster had a hypervigilant inner voice that said, "Run, tiger, that's nothing good happening." That actually made us survive. Whereas the person who was laid back and thought, "Oh, that must be the wind in the trees," got eaten by the tiger. So those negative voices had a very protective origin. So they served us well, but when we become adults, they are no longer necessary. Yet they are still there like software in our subconscious. And oftentimes we are not aware. It feels like it's us. It feels like it's our voice, our thought. We think it's real. And that's the first step to actually change from letting them run your life to silencing your inner critics. First step, like I said, is becoming aware.
Hey,
Notice.
Simone, I just wanted to give you a quick time check.
Yeah.
We're about, I think, 13 minutes left. I just wanted to give you a time check.
That sounds about perfect. Thank you. Notice when you typically hear your inner critic's voice. So take a day or a week and really try to notice when your mood shifts, your energy shifts, all of a sudden you really feel cranky or just not like you did a minute ago. And then try to identify which of the inner critic is speaking and which message do you hear. Then actively distance yourself from the statement. Turn the I statement into a you statement. Like, I am boring, turn it into you are saying that I am boring. Or let's stick with this one example. Step 2, investigate the critic's mission. Like we talked earlier about, is the inner critic is trying to protect you from something, or it meant well and tried to protect you from something when you were a child, but what's at the root cause? It's often some unfounded threat that no longer serves you today. Step number 3 is question it. Do I really need protection? And if you're familiar with Byron Katie's work, you can dive deeper and ask these 4 questions. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? How do I react when I believe that thought? And who would I be without that thought? It's great questions to debunk what we take as reality and to distance ourselves from the statements. Step 4 is to take control, consciously decide to stop acting on the bad advice this inner critic is giving you, and remember your strengths and take back the control of your thoughts, because it's not you thinking this. It's just a program running in the back of your mind, and by pulling it out and putting it into its place and labeling it, that's how you take back control. You also want to acknowledge your own skills and accomplishments, so don't let yourself be put down by that voice, and remind how others see you. They have a very kind vision of you, and practice self-compassion. Hug yourself some more. And step 5 is to choose a better response. Once you're aware, you can choose better. You can pause before you respond. After you've noticed the voice, you take a moment, take a breath, count to 3, whatever works best for you, and then respond. Come up with a kinder, more rational, and a more positive response. For example, if the voice told you, nobody wants you here at this party, or nobody wants to hear what you have to say, you could reply by saying, I may be shy, but that doesn't mean I'm boring. I'm interesting. Many people like my stories. So kind of bring the rational, conscious mind into the equation and debunk the myth that the inner critic is trying to tell you. And then remind yourself again that you are in control and not your inner critic. A quick detour into neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to change through growth and reorganization. And why is that important? Even though the voices of our inner critics have been with us for a very long time, so much so that it feels like our own sense of self, it is possible to change how our brain processes information and how we react to situations at any time. It's never too late to turn things around. Until the 1960s, scientists considered the brain a finite organ, meaning if it got destroyed or parts of it got destroyed by a stroke or a traumatic brain injury, that part was lost, and the function that part covered is lost forever. However, we now know that that is not true. The brain can recover, it can actually grow new neurons, and it can transfer functions to other areas of the brain that didn't deal with that before, but it can learn to take over functions from other areas. And by learning new things, our brain can create new synapses and new pathways, and we can learn to mute that inner critic, those inner critics, and actually turn it into a new habit that we question it. And then you will notice that those voices will drown out and peter down over time. If you're up for it, I would love to do a quick visualization exercise just to show you the power of the brain. And again, if you could just look away from the screen, you can just soften your gaze. You can close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to. And I want to invite you to imagine holding a lemon in your hand. Take it out of the bowl, hold it in your hand, and you can pass it from one hand to the other. and you feel its weight in your hand. You see the dimply skin. It's bright yellow and it's just the perfect ripeness. And you squeeze it a little bit and you think, oh, it would be nice to actually have a slice of this lemon. So visualize yourself going to the kitchen, get a cutting board and a knife, and cut open this juicy lemon. Can you smell the lemon scent? It smells so fresh. I love lemon scent. And juices are dripping, and you cut a smaller slice or a wedge out of the half that you had cut and bring it close to your nose and smell it. It smells so good. And then put it on your mouth and suck on it. And you feel the sour, amazing taste of a fresh, perfectly ripe lemon. And you swallow it, and you can put the wedge away and bring your attention back to the screen and to me. If what you noticed is what most people notice, it was that you were able to see, smell, visualize that lemon, so much so that when you imagined sucking on it, you might have noticed Can you guys still hear me? I just had an error message that Zoom quit working.
We can hear you now, Simone. We lost you for a bit, just like 30 seconds or so.
Okay. So I just want to come back to the lemon exercise. Did you hear the end of it where you had sucked on it? And did you guys notice salivation? And this is such a cool proof of the fact that to the brain, it doesn't really make a difference whether something is real or we visualize it in our mind. There was no real lemon. You did not really taste it, yet the saliva started flowing. Just as the brain cannot always distinguish between a thought and reality, like in the case of this lemon, it can also not distinguish between a memory or a vision. So this is a very helpful fact to use visualization and including as many sensory aspects as possible in the visualization to turn abstract hopes into goals and into a vision that guides you, because your brain will help you to work towards recreating that in your real life. 5 minutes a day is enough. There has been a really interesting study that I referenced down there, and it's another useful tool to apply. Yeah, I want to end this chapter with this quote. You've been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens. To come full circle to our relocation, shared relocation background, together with the tips and techniques you just learned, I chose 8 of my favorite tips that can help you settle into a new city or a new country and feel at home faster. I'm going to go over those fairly quickly because they're pretty self-explanatory. Keep the old routines that have served you well in the past. So if you've been a member at the gym, sign up for a gym membership. If you've been playing sports, find a club or get the hobbies up and running again. Next one is to walk or bike your neighborhood or town if it's safe to do so. Slow down, get out of the autopilot that we're on when we're in a car, and actually walk and notice what's there. It will be very different, the landmarks you'll see, and it will familiarize you in a completely new way with your new home. Volunteering is an amazing opportunity to get you out of the house when you don't know anybody yet, and you can always help other people who know even less than you do. Thinking long term, that is a lesson I learned in during my first relocation in Canada. I knew it was only going to be 2 years, and I was always almost already gone again. I kind of never even tried to fit in and make it my home. So pretend you're there for good and enjoy the time you're there. Know what you want, or figure out what you want. That's really important, because while it can take some time to do that, you can only get to where you want to go when you have a destination in mind. So work on figuring out what it is that you love to do, where you want to put your energy in, and then put a plan together to make it happen. Small changes is all that are needed. We always think big and we need to know this and that. Many small changes lead to big changes. And if you think of an ocean liner crossing the Atlantic, it is constantly adjusting in micro adjustments to make sure it actually gets to the destination port that it's supposed to end up in. But you wouldn't even notice that there are any corrections. Keep working on your growth mindset. Even if you're not where you want to be at the moment, try to add the word yet to your statement, just to get a different change in perspective, and keep working towards your goals more positively. And the final one is a really simple but very powerful little life hack, the so what technique. Simply add the little word so before any worry statement, and that will change the impact it has on you. So instead of telling yourself, what if I don't know what to say to the other moms, turn into it, so what if I don't know what to say to the other moms? Or what if they don't like me? Turns into, so what if they don't like me? It just takes the pressure away, and it helps you to stop catastrophizing and looking at the better scenario and not the worst case scenario. I took these 8 from a list of 26 that I put together over the time. If you are interested in the full list, just shoot me a message and I'd be happy to send that to you. Let's recap our takeaways. 3 tips for positive change. Choose your favorite pattern interrupt and have it ready when you need it. Things happen and you want to be able to switch out of your automatic response and detour your brain into a new pattern to create new neural pathways. Choose what you want instead. That is what I work with my clients with a lot. Most people know exactly what they don't want, but it's not so easy to actually put in words what they do want. So put some time into thinking about that, and then start designing smart goals and put them into place. Love yourself, hug yourself, treat yourself like you would a friend or someone you love. Show yourself compassion, love, and grace. It's human to struggle, and you can get through things. 3 tiny tweaks anyone can fit into their day. Remember, 3 breaths, exhaling twice as long. 2 minutes of power posing to change your attitude and calm down your stress. Or 5 minutes of visualizing your goals, taking into consideration as many sensory inputs as possible. And I want to leave you with that. Whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. So think hard what it is that you choose. And if you don't like where you're at, come up with a plan and change it. Thank you for listening to me talk nonstop for such a long time. And thank you for showing up for yourself today. I really hope you'll be able to use a lot of what I've talked about starting right after this. And I wanted to leave you with this promo code if you are interested in going deeper in any of the topics I talked about or trying to figure out where you are headed. I want to offer you a 90-minute coaching session for $97, which is a special offer that expires at the end of June. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And these are my contact details. And I, again, want to thank you for being here and for listening. I'm going to turn it over to Isha and the chat.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Simone, for such a useful and insightful session. I'm sure we will be using the simple and easy tips and techniques that you have given us on self-care and reconnecting us and toning us down those inner negative thoughts, inner critics of us. That's a wonderful new word that I have learned. And like you said at the end, what you are not changing, you're not choosing. I love that. I'm sure everyone will take away this much information with them. Thank you so much.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
I would love to. Would you like to share the exercise that you have created for them? Okay.
Mhm.
Can you please tell them about that? And meanwhile, I'll
Yeah,
just
sure.
share it.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So when I talked about the inner critics and the steps to take to silence or recognize and silence the inner critic, I put that into a worksheet that Isha is going to put up for you to download if you're interested. So you can work through that on your own time, because I, walked you through it very quickly without allowing time for you to think of your own inner critic voices for the sake of time. And that will allow you to do this exercise at home and repeat it over and over again, because we tend to have many inner critics and negative voices. I do.
Yes, perfect. So I have just shared it with you all. So please download it. And so without further to do, I'm going to hand it over to Dipali. She is going to take you over with our services and the offerings that we are Pistachio offer to the members. Here's to you, Dipali.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Isha. And thank you so much, Simone. That was so insightful and, so many nuggets of kind of self-discovery throughout this process. So thank you so much for that. Those of you who are new to VR Pistachio, I know you've just signed up and become members. So we are so happy to have you. We just quickly wanted to introduce our services and upcoming events like these so that you can take advantage of them. Own Your Story. We have developed this e-learning course to bring you the wisdom from the experience, from the perspective or the lens of a relocating spouse. And I've personally struggled so much introducing myself every time. So Aditi, who's also a learning and development professional, has actually developed this e-learning. In this e-learning, you will learn how to highlight your strengths, how to kind of articulate your unique lived experiences and create a story out of it, and how to apply powerful frameworks to write your own story. This e-learning is hosted on a platform, so by the end of it, you will not only have created your story or an elevator speech for yourself, but you would also have an opportunity to interact with the community, with the private community. And Aditi will also lead one-on-one sessions once a month, like Ask Me Anything session once a month. So, and the cost of this e-learning is just the same as a Starbucks coffee. So it's not too much to invest in yourself. So I would urge you to kind of, be curious, go there, look it up what we have to offer you and sign up for it. So that's about Own Your Story, which is our e-learning on your elevator speech. The second thing that we wanted to kind of announce is our data analytics pod. We just had a really successful data analytics event. And this event was actually to launch a pod. In this pod is for you if you are, working in data analytics excites you. If you want to get started, but you don't know what should be your first step, you have this long list of questions that you need to ask experts, but you're just tired of sending them LinkedIn messages and never hearing back from them. Uh, or if you're looking for making meaningful connections and kind of being a part of accountability pod with other members who are in the same on the same path or journey as you are. So if you identify with any of the things that I mentioned before, then definitely this pod is for you. This pod, we've tried to make it very interactive, so it has expert data analytics professionals from Amazon, Microsoft, GoDaddy, UW Medicine, and we have panel discussions. We have a bootcamp organization that's coming and speaking about how to develop your portfolio. We have topics like your SQL and Power BI that are discussed in detail. We will be providing you vetted resources on this part. With this pod, you will again get access to a private community, make friends in the process, share your wins and frustrations. It is a very frustrating journey. So, we want to give you that platform to, a space for interactions. So that's what we're trying to create. It's a very structured accountability pod, and it will definitely give you clarity on what should be your next step in the data analytics career. So that's what we have on the data analytics part. So if this interests you, just write to us at connect@wearepistachio.com. Isha is just going to put in the event link. So if you want to register right now. We have a early bird offer till Friday. So that will save you $20. So go ahead and sign up there. And thank you so much for being here. For the ones who've just become members, welcome to VR Pistachio community. Isha, if you just put in the link for the Facebook group as well.
Yes, I have just.
So that whoever is not a part of the group yet, you can join the community and get to attend many such events. We have at least 2 events every single month. Thank you so much. I know we've gone over by 11 minutes, but I hope that you benefited from this session. And thank you, Simone, once again, from the bottom of our heart. We're so grateful that you could find the time to, share your expertise with us. So thank you so much for that.
Are we allowing to ask the questions? And because I have a quick question. So